Hello everyone. Recently, as we are witnessing many cases of MISC, and many friends have requested me to review the literature and discuss out the management guidelines for this particular condition. So the next PowerPoint will be on the management, where we'll be discussing mainly on the management aspect. Number one, immune therapy of about IVIG, the dose, how much to give, when to give, then about steroids. We also discuss about antithrombotic therapy in the form of heparin, aspirin, what dose and how long to give, etc, etc. If you have any questions after watching this video, you can we can discuss it out on WhatsApp, or we can I am accessible on all the platforms through Sneh Children Hospital. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please do watch the video. Hello friends. Recently there has been upsurge in cases of MISC, or multisystem inflammatory syndrome, in children following COVID infection. So friends had requested me to review the literature on management, and with this presentation I will try to go through the whatever the evidence available at this point of time on 31st of May 2021. I also made a video a few months back on the clinical features and when to suspect for colleagues. In this video we'll be discussing about management and outcome mainly. So hello everyone, I am Dr. Khanjan Shah. I am consultant pediatric intensivist and currently practicing at Ahmedabad at Sneh Children Hospital. So in next couple of minutes or so, we'll be discussing on these aspects of management of these particular condition, setting of care, what management based on various medications available, which to choose, and what is the available literature for that, follow-up, outcome. These things we'll be discussing one by one. So coming to the very first thing, setting of care, inpatient versus outpatient. So any patient who has abnormal vitals, who has any signs of clinical as well as laboratory evidence of cardiac dysfunction, having respiratory distress, or having loose motions, vomiting, not able to tolerate orally, or the child with any of the acute kidney injury or liver injury, coagulopathy, and or if the child is already immunocompromised or having any chronic illness, should be hospitalized at very earliest. Very few subset of patients where you are evaluating a child whose vitals are stable and you can assure the follow-up very closely, those patients can be evaluated on outpatient, and once the criteria are met, they should also be hospitalized. So basically they should be admitted when you are suspecting this particular condition. Reason just simple being that at times they deteriorate very fast. Multidisciplinary care where available, they should be sent to, where pediatric cardiologist, pediatric intensivist and the specialists are available, they should be managed with. So in next couple of slides, what we'll be discussing one by one. First and foremost, what are the immune modifying therapies are being recommended, and their dose and everything we'll be discussing. So IVIG, steroids and other adjunctive therapies. A second important aspect is antithrombotic therapies, like when to give heparin, what dose to give, aspirin, etc, etc we'll be discussing. Antimicrobial therapy, we'll discuss about antibiotics and antivirals, and one small slide on based on presentation, like how if the child present as shock or Kawasaki disease or cardiac dysfunction, then what to do. So this is how we'll be discussing one by one. So when we are discussing the immunomodifying therapies, IVIG are the first line drug in the management of this condition. or dose being you have to give 2 gram per kg, as in it has to be administered as single infusion over 8 to 12 hours. If there is cardiac dysfunction and the volume, you cannot give that much of volume at a go, then you have to give it over 2 days. So that is how it has to be given. Also, you should remember that IVIG dose is based on ideal body weight. Many times we see adolescent patients who weigh 60 kg, 70 kg, but you don't have to give IVIG based on that weight, but ideal body weight should be used. Now, when you are planning to give IVIG or you have diagnosed MISC, make sure you collect all the samples for serological testing before giving IVIG, because results will be altered after the IVIG. Also, many inflammatory markers we check for the diagnosis, but ESR we cannot follow once we give IVIG, because IVIG would alter that. So, we will have to rely on other inflammatory markers like CRP or ferritin, etc. So, this was about IVIG. Now, coming to the other drug, glucocorticoids or steroids. So, basically practice regarding use of steroids is not standardized, or the only steroids to give without IVIG, no such thing or the data is available at this point of time. But glucocorticoid in addition to IVIG is suggested in certain whatever the units have been using there in moderate to severe manifestation, like patient in shock requiring vasopressor, the steroids are, or for any reason child is getting admitted in pediatric intensive care unit, the steroids are being used. Also, patients with persistent fever and rising inflammatory marker, despite the treatment with IVIG, the steroids are being used. Now, recently in May we came across a trial where concomitant treatment of IVIG with steroid found to be better, and it was better than giving only IVIG followed by steroids. Dose of steroids, methylprednisolone is what given at 2 mg per kg per day in 2 divided doses. And if the patient is sick or in refractory cases, pulse dose of steroids with methylprednisolone 10 to 30 mg per kg, single dose, maximum of 1 gram has been used, and there are though very few supporting data. If I tell my experience of having treated around 30 plus patients, where many of them were moderate to severe, we required to pulse them with 10 mg per kg of steroids, and majority of them were better after 48 to 72 hours of concomitant treatment with IVIG and steroids. Efficacy of steroids in MISC is limited to a case series in which 50 to 60% of patients were treated with glucocorticoids at varying doses, and most patients recovered rapidly. So, basically the therapy is for steroid is such that you give it, and then once for like in moderate to severe cases you have given pulse therapy, then switch over to prednisolone and taper it over 3 to 4 weeks is what been given. To complete the list of immune modifying therapies, adjunctive therapies like IL-1 inhibitors or IL-6 inhibitors, convalescent plasma therapy, they are not well studied and not that much recommended. Currently, and expert pediatric rheumatologist, or they should be consulted before offering a child to this, where you have tried steroids, IVIG, these therapies if you are thinking. Currently, I have patient in ICU where we at the day 5 of IV steroids and he's already received IVIG. He is little better, but not inflammatory markers are still not that good. So he might need adjunctive therapies and will be consulting a rheumatologist for the child. So basically, this was about the immune modifying therapies. So IVIG dose 2 gram per kg over infusion of 8 to 12 hours, single go. or if there is a cardiac dysfunction, give it over 2 days. That is number one. Coming to the steroids, the dose of methylprednisolone is 2 mg per kg, and once the fever goes down and child is better, you switch it over to oral equivalents of prednisolone and then taper it over 3 to 4 weeks. And then coming to this adjunctive therapies, to be honest, not used in any of them. Very funny names like IL-1 inhibitors like anakinra, canakinumab, tocilizumab, or plasma therapy. They are all being are not being studied for this condition at this point of time. Now coming to the antithrombotic therapy, the patients of MIS-C are at risk of experiencing thrombotic complications. For example, if there is severe LV dysfunction, then apical LV thrombus can happen. If there is aneurysm, then myocardial infarction can happen. So basically, there is no particular data to guide the treatment, but this is what many units have been using. Aspirin is being used for all patients in the low dose 3 to 5 mg per kg daily, and this is basically extrapolated from Kawasaki disease, in which we use. Now, if a patient with current or prior venous thromboembolism is there, then they should receive therapeutic dose of low molecular heparin, a dose of which I will tell in my next slide. But any patient with current or past thromboembolic complication, they should receive therapeutic dose of heparin. And now any patient with severe LV dysfunction, therapeutic dose of again LMWH is recommended. Reason just being they are at increased risk of developing thrombus. If the child is at increased risk of bleeding, then you might consider not using it, but otherwise it should be used, like as we do in the patients of severe myocarditis. Coming to the next set of patients, where patients with large or giant coronary artery aneurysms, they should receive therapeutic dose of anticoagulation in addition to aspirin, just like in Kawasaki disease. Now, if the patient does not have any of the cardiac complication, but is having severe MIS-C and admitted in pediatric ICU, then prophylactic dose of low molecular weight heparin is to be used. And when D dimer is markedly elevated, that is more than 10 times the upper limit of normal, we should use the therapeutic dose of low molecular weight heparin. As I said, next slide will show the therapeutic as well as prophylactic dose of heparin age wise. Coming to the last set of patients in antithrombotic therapy, that is patient with less severe MIS-C. So for hospitalized patient without indications for therapeutic anticoagulation who has less severe MIS-C, the decision to administer anticoagulation in addition to aspirin for prophylaxis is individualized and weighing the risk of thrombosis and risk of bleeding. However, as we know, COVID-19 related MIS-C itself should be considered as a major risk factor for venous thromboembolism. Another indication, or you should use prophylactic dose when the patient has central venous catheter or malignancy, prolonged immobility, obesity, those patients we should use the prophylactic dose of low molecular weight heparin. So basically this was in brief. So aspirin in all patients in the dose of 3 to 5 milligram per kg. A patient with current or past thromboembolism should receive therapeutic dose of low molecular weight heparin. Patient with severe LV dysfunction should receive therapeutic dose of heparin along with aspirin. Again, like patient with large or giant C aneurysm should receive, if there is no risk of bleeding, should receive low molecular weight heparin. A patient with severe MIS-C, they should, if the value is more than 10, D dimer is more than 10 times upper normal limit, should receive therapeutic doses. Otherwise, they should receive prophylactic dose of heparin. And patient with less severe MIS-C, as we discussed just now, you individualize the risk. If patient is obese, malignancy, prolonged immobilization, you should consider using low molecular weight heparin. Now coming to the dose of heparin, more than 2 month child, if it's a treatment dose, then you have to give 1 milligram per kg per dose twice a day subcutaneously, and prophylactic dose is 0.5 milligram per kg per dose twice a day. So this was about the dose of heparin. Now coming to antimicrobial therapy, antibiotics, patient many a time mimic a septic shock or toxic shock syndrome. So antibiotics are being used after taking culture, and ceftriaxone plus vancomycin you can use, or if there is features consistent with toxic mediated illness, erythroderma, you can consider using clindamycin. But antibiotics should be discontinued once bacterial infection has been excluded and your diagnosis of MIS is being confirmed. So when empirically, when you are in doubt initially, you might consider using ceftriaxone. Coming to antiviral therapy, remdesivir, in the management of MIS, its role is uncertain. However, if some children have positive PCR testing and may have active infection, then there is a potential role or the use of remdesivir. So many times they present with other presentation also on admission. For example, if they present with shock, then they should be resuscitated as per the protocol for shock, and many a times they may have vasodilatory shock, and they many times it's refractory to volume expansion, then you might need to consider using epinephrine or norepinephrine as a preferred vasoactive agent for fluid refractory shock. Also, they may have met the criteria for incomplete or complete Kawasaki disease, and they should receive standard therapies for Kawasaki disease like IVIG aspirin, and if there is persistent signs of inflammation or coronary dilatation, steroids they should be receiving it. Many a time they do have cardiac dysfunction also, then we have to follow the protocol of cardiac dysfunction as far as fluids is concerned, and use of inotropes or inodilators are concerned. We might consider using milrinone or so. So basically, whatever the presentation or the other ancillary management or infection prevention should be implemented, infection control practices should be in place. So that all is comes into along with the management of the routine thing. A follow-up is important as risk of long-term cardiovascular complications are there. Basically, it's extrapolated from follow-up studies from Kawasaki disease. So certain units follow this protocol. If patient who have initially normal functions and normal coronary dimension, follow echocardiogram is performed 1 to 2 weeks post diagnosis to recheck the coronary arteries. In patient who have coronary artery dilation or aneurysm on initial echo itself, then echo has to be repeated every 2 to 3 days till coronary artery size is stable, and then 1 to 2 weeks for the next 4 to 6 weeks. For patient with systolic dysfunction and normal coronary arteries on initial echo, the echo is repeated as clinically indicated, including repeat imaging of the coronary arteries with each study. So this is how they should be followed up as far as their cardiac function is concerned. Outcome of MIS-C, the prognosis is is uncertain, but there is, because of these recent literature and management guidelines available, the mortality of around 1% is being reported, 1.7% in a systemic review of 16 case series, where total of 655 patients with MIS-Cs were studied, and there were 11 deaths were also reported, which comes to 1.7%. So basically, this was in brief about the management and outcome of MIS-C. Thank you very much for watching this video.